these are in better shape than I thought. So at the last Olympic Games with my old duet partner, her name is Corinne Thomas, we placed 7th at the Olympic Games, and unfortunately we didn't really perform very, very well. But the year after the Olympics, we were able to move up the rankings and come 2nd in the World Series in duet, and I was able to finish 3rd in the World Series in solo. So we're slowly moving up in the world rankings. You know, leading up to the Olympics, there's this big, big hype, and then you get to the Olympics and you're on this huge high. And after the Olympics, there's a slow die down, and then there's a couple of ups and highs, but then there's this huge drop and this low that you'd never expect to happen. And when I go out to give clinics in Toronto, Calgary, or even if I'm just at an event, for instance, last week I was at an event for Montréal Lumière, and I was signing autographs and taking pictures with little kids, and it still feels like I'm one of them. And I think it'll always feel like that. I still feel excited in the inside, even though I'm on the other side of things. It still feels the same. Yeah, sometimes I have these doubts, thinking, you know, how am I going to be able to top this? I mean, I've checked off so many things off my bucket list, and I'm already 21. And I'm just thinking, you know, when I'm 40, what else am I going to add to my bucket list to make me feel like I'm accomplishing something or I'm moving on? And it's kind of this feeling as if, what's next? What's going to happen? The Olympics is a check.
Oh, yeah. So my name's Claudia Holzner. Been a member of the national team for 6 years now. Yeah, pretty much training full time. I'm doing part-time school as well, and eventually I might want to go into communications. I'm like kind of now knowing what I'm doing, but I've been feeling really lost for the last like year or two. It'll be a good change.
I look fantastic today too. My Saturday attire, my sweatpants. Apologies. So leading up to the Olympic Games in 2016 and a little bit after the Olympics, all of my training and competitions were funded by Own the Podium, OTP, and the Government of Canada. But unfortunately, due to our results in the past few years, we've lost the majority of our funding. So that has led me to go back to a club instead of staying with the national team since we decentralized. So I have to pay for all of my own training now, my competition fees. Dans sa conscience, c'était différent. Elle faisait vraiment juste comme maillot noir casse-plat.
Ah, ok.
C'est dur à savoir. C'est juste if we're in a competition season, which is usually from January to mid-July or August, we're training approximately 35 to 50 hours a week. And on our off season, we train about 25 to 30 hours a week. So nobody could be an athlete forever. I can't be a synchronized swimmer when I'm 50 or 60 years old. I have to plan for my second career. So I'm fortunate enough to retire twice in my life, once from sport and once from a real job. I think retiring twice has its pros and cons. I'm a type of person who gets bored easily, so I think for me, having the opportunity to retire twice is a bonus. I wouldn't be able to do one thing just for the rest of my life, so having to split my life almost into two is, I guess, a positive for me. Getting my degree in health sciences in hopes of pursuing a degree in medicine, hopefully later on after when I retire from sport.
What's your social life? Sorry, I'm
Obviously, I don't have time for much of a social life, but I'm really lucky to have great friends who understand what living an active lifestyle is like, and they also live active, busy lifestyles as well. So my friend group and my friend circle kind of involves around people who also live busy lifestyles as well.
What about dating?
Sorry. Well, there is time to date too. Obviously, I don't have too much time on my regular schedule, but on times off, like in the off season, summers or winter breaks, there's always time. Sometimes. Sometimes. So I've been fortunate enough throughout my entire synchronized swimming career to swim with athletes who are much older than I am. The girls who move from out of town, obviously it's another burden added, so they have to be able to support themselves financially while also trying to prepare themselves for life after sport too. So it's a little hard to create that sort of cushion for after sport when all your funds are going to basically just living and training. I would say that the vast majority of sports, especially women in sport, have a little bit more of a harder time preparing for life after sport, just because the amount of resources, not that I wouldn't say they aren't exactly equal, but for example, NHL hockey players don't really have to worry about this type of burden later on, whereas even the Canadiens de Montréal women hockey players have to plan for life after sport.
My name's Kelly Sudia. I'm 37 years old, and I am a retired CWHL women's hockey player. I retired in 2012 after we won the Clarkson Cup. I decided that it was a good way to walk away. I knew it was going to be my last year. Nobody knew except for my coaches. I didn't even tell my best friends. I knew right away. So when we won, it was like a relief to say we won. It's good. I left on a good note. The transition was quite easy for me, but it was definitely a place where I knew I wouldn't be able to make a profession off of it. Absolutely not. Just eventually you have to find a means of living. But I have continued in terms of after hockey is now I'm part of the coaching staff with Les Canadiens, and the fact that the organization was opening me, welcoming me with open arms, it made the transition just slipped right in. For work, I work at John Abbott as an academic advisor. It was a career that I knew eventually that I wanted, and I'm very happy with it. I enjoy working with the students, especially this age group, that transition of coming out of high school, trying to figure yourself out, and then growing, you know, that whole like development from coming here at 16, 17 to leaving here at 18 and 19. It's nice to see people eventually find their path and move on to something, so I really enjoy it. They make a joke that they call me the Swiss Army knife, that I kind of do a little bit of everything. Being, you know, that in between, that median in between, you know, the players and the coaches, so players can come talk to me about things, and then I can relay the message to coaches. I still have that close tie with them, as well as the coaches can say, you know, stuff to me that I can relay to the players. So I'm kind of that in between, which is still nice because you're still part of you get the best of both worlds, absolutely. Well, in an ideal world, right, everybody says, you know, they want to have equal pay as the men and things like that, but we know that the NHL has been around for 100 years, right? And if you look back to when the NHL started, there was males working, right? They had to work, and then they played the sport they love, right? So our model in the CWHL, you know, is you need a good structure around before you can start really making it a full-time paying position for the girls, right? We'd love to be able to be in a position where we can say, here's $50 or $60 or $80,000.
You've recently seen, you know, the USA women stand up and say, hey, we deserve to be paid, and you know, the Canadian players did that a couple of years ago with you know, the Canadian national team. These women are not playing for the money, because, you know, they're not paid enough to play for the money. And WNBA and Fast Pitch and all those sports organizations out there with women, there's careers for the women in those sports. Like, you know, Lisa Borders, she's the commissioner. You know, Stacey Alistair, the president of golf. There's phenomenal careers that women now at the ages of 19, 20, and 21 can come out and go, I can be that. And that's because all the women who came before us created this path of saying, hey, we're not just, like, you know, I say it all the time for us, we're not just creating a career on the ice, but we're creating a career off the ice. I mean, even for reporters, I mean, you know, and different types, you can now see that there's somebody's listening. You look on the TV, women sportscasters everywhere. Your dreams of what you want to be for a woman is so open there now. You still have to fight your way to the top, but so do you as men have to fight your way to the top. You're not getting there on a ticket either. So I think that we're not totally there, but now there's an opportunity for women to look.
I'm also really fortunate to have a wonderful family. They're a great support system for me. You know, sometimes when I get home after 12, 16-hour days, you know, I don't really feel like making dinner, so I could just call home and they make dinner for me. So they're there for me every time I need them. Right now I'm only allowing myself to watch one TV show, and it's Grey's Anatomy. Just it's one TV show a week that I allow myself, and the rest, Big Bang Theory, sometimes in summer training camps when I have time. Or like old shows like Hogan's Heroes or Goomer Pile. It's extremely difficult for my parents when I'm away a lot. Anytime I speak of retirement with my parents, they kind of don't know how to react. It's a little strange. For instance, just yesterday I went to a pre-med conference from McGill and UDM, and I told my parents about it, and even then the vibe around us kind of just changed because they don't know non-synchronized swimming me, non-Olympic athlete me. They just know that part of me, and they don't know what I'm going to be like next. So I think it's a little bit scary for them, but it's only normal. Leading up to the Olympics, I always thought that I'd feel different, I'd be a different person after the Olympic Games, but once you come home after the Olympics, you're the exact same person going into the Olympics, coming out of it. Nothing really changes.
I think it's a good chapter, and I want to close that before I decide on something completely different. It's hard, and I know that it's a little bit complicated. You know, as synchronized swimmers, we're very efficient. We like to have things done very quickly. So transitioning to the normal world, I think, is a little bit, it slows down your lifestyle a little bit. The sport becomes our lives for however long, 16, 17, 18 years. And it's hard to just stop dead.
Of course, being a full-time athlete, you have to make some sacrifices, but I don't like to look at them as sacrifices. I like to look at them as choices. I choose to train full-time and to train for the next Olympics, and unfortunately that means going to school part-time instead of full-time. But at the end of the day, I can only be an athlete for a short period of time in my life, and school will always be there, so that's a choice that I have to make now.